Hello, and welcome back to the Ask the Color Expert podcast. Today's special guest is Katrina Kelly. She is from Ireland. She is behind the chair doing color and all the other things in the salon. And she's also both an independent educator as well as a member of the European Design Team for Joico. And I have to mention that she is a left-handed stylist. So all you lefties out there looking for an educator that can feel the difference between a lefty and a right-handed person needs to know this person and needs to have her education. I get that question a lot. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited to have you and welcome.
Thank you so much. I am so excited to be here. I can't wait to just have the chats and I guess delve into hair and education and our industry. I love our industry. I just think it's the best industry in the world. Love it.
I agree. And I love all the different facets of it. When you and I just jumped on before we hit record, I said, oh my gosh, I love your hair color. I am so boring. I've been wearing the same color for 30 plus years with a little bit of difference in the shade of blonde, but I've pretty much been a blonde forever. And you said, so am I, but I love to put different tones in. So, people watching on YouTube are going to see your color, but the people listening to the podcast are gonna be like, what is her color? So it's like this perfect peachy pinky. It's the shade that I'm always looking to get. And it either leans to rose or to violet or to peach. So it's absolutely perfect. And you shared a little tip that I wanted to make sure that we get onto the recording, how you get that beautiful color.
So underneath all of this, I'm blonde, so my hair is bleached basically. And so something that I love to do is mix my direct colors. So for instance, we'll say Joico Intensity with conditioner. And basically it's not even that it, I would have thought that it dilutes it. It's not, it slightly changes the tone. But also what it does is the molecules are much larger, so they will fade off or wash off the hair much quicker. So I love the fact that it might only actually it might only last 2 to 4 washes, and I do this actually with a lot of my clients as well. That client that is afraid, they love their blonde and they're like, oh, I don't know, but I'd love to try something, and they're like, oh, I don't know, and I'm like, let's just mix some conditioner in there with it because and I'll explain it to them as well and how it works. And you have that client that will say, oh, I loved and it faded really beautifully. So if I have a client that loves that kind of pearly blonde, sometimes I'll add a little bit of a pink and maybe a little bit of a violet in there as well. Because the violet will just slightly kind of neutralize the yellow tone, but the pink actually, it just embraces that pearl tone. So when it does fade off, the client is even left with, this beautiful pearly blonde, which they love as well. So it's kind of like they're getting 2 for 1 in a way. They love it the day they leave. They get loads of selfies and then they actually love it as it fades off as well. But they know it's going to fade. And I think it's all down to that communication, isn't it? Because sometimes, we do these gorgeous colors and we might not say to the client about like how it's going to last, but the client loves it and they want it to stay like that forever. And that's not realistic because hair fades. And so I like to kind of explain in that way. And because the clients know, then most of the time they'll go home with something that they can put in again as well at home. And to me, it feels safer if there's some conditioner in there as well for the hair.
Now, do you mix them up a little conditioner cocktail for them to retouch it at home? Do you put your direct dye right into conditioner and send them home with it?
Yeah, so sometimes we will do we'll make up like a color conditioner for them and we'll kind of we mix it in the salon. So like that as well. Another thing, a great tip that I have, because I'm a colorist 26 years now. I've had Botox as well. So
I was going to say you look amazing. You look like a baby.
A lot of people say to me, you look very young. I'm like, I act young because I want to stay young forever. But I've had Botox. But I'm 26 years in the industry, and I love learning. But I love to kind of explain everything to clients, because when I have to explain stuff to them, it makes me want to learn. So I need to understand what I'm saying. Like, so I love that bit of accountability, that I have to put that on myself as well, So I forget where I was going with this. I was going to say something.
Sending them home with the conditioner with the Vivid in it.
Oh yes, yeah. And just exactly kind of explaining it to them. Oh, and a tip that I have is what I love to do again as a colorist is if I'm like, talking to a client, about a particular color, I will even just make up a small amount of it, and I'll place a little bit even on their hair, or we have like blonde hair strands, and I'll show them. And if they kind of like, oh, I like that, but I think I'd like it a little bit pinker, it just allows me to start kind of nearly formulating it in front of them. So you're customizing it in front of them instead of just handing it to them. So I feel like they're kind of part of the journey of it as well, and they love that. So and that's kind of what we did as well through lockdown. We're just back now as well after lockdown. So but a lot of my clients who have come in this week have said, oh my goodness, those color conditioners that you made were they just loved it because their hair still felt amazing, and looked gorgeous. They had tones going through it as well for their Zoom calls.
Well, you are going to have your hands full. I know that you all just opened. A friend of mine, Justina from Ireland, we've kept in touch through the pandemic, and she was she's like, I just want to do hair again. And we were chatting about the size of the regrowth. That's a whole other topic. I mean, you can't treat it as a regular retouch. And then the question is it the client's fault? Like, should the client pay more because we have to do more when it's not their fault that they couldn't come, but it's not your fault either? So should you eat the cost of the extra color and the extra time? Does the client eat it? Like, where, you know what I mean? That's where it gets tricky, because it really is no one's fault, but it's not a single process retouch when it's this much regrowth.
No. And do you know what I would say as well is again, I can only talk about Ireland because I know what's going on here. But in Ireland, we got a thing called PUP, which is called we've nicknamed it the PUP, which is it's an amount of money that our government has given us while we are off work. So and it's in around €350, but it could go between I think 280 or 220 to 350. But a lot of people have been able to save during the pandemic. So although some people have been paying their bills and everything else, a lot of people have been able to save. So what we have discovered is a lot of clients have money. So they have money and they want to spend it. And I don't think, as a business, we can absorb that amount of money, like when it comes to color and everything else, like the amount of color that we have to use, but also like we have to think about everything we're doing and plan everything. And I know we do that anyway, but I just think there's a lot more planning and preparation that goes into longer regrowths, planning, sitting down with your client, plus you're welcoming them back, and you're having that conversation, and it's so lovely. Like just even the gifts clients are bringing into us this week, and just like one of my clients yesterday was just so emotional, and she just said, Katrina, I just missed you so much, and she said to me, I did put color in my hair at home. And I said, look, you did what you needed to do at that time. And right now I'm the professional. I'm here to fix whatever like I need to do. I've trained my hardest for this. And, like the way doctors train for oh, sorry, I'll turn that on silent. My husband is texting me. But, I feel like this is what we've all trained for, and and all the color courses and the education and the hair science that we've been learning through the pandemic, this is what we've trained for, is all the long regrowths, the new plan, and what we're going to do next. And just making clients feel, welcome. Like I remember the first lockdown, and if I went to the supermarket, if I seen someone with fresh roots, I was nearly looking at them going, oh, she has fresh roots. But this time around, I was just like, you know what, do what you need to do, because I felt this lockdown was a lot harder on people. And some people just had to go for the box ties, and if that's what they had to do, that's what they had to do. But as a professional, and as a salon who has empathy for humans, then we welcome everybody in, and we're there to fix problems, and that's what we're there to do. Plus I just I love kind of trying to, I guess, look at it in an aerial view and kind of think, right, what can we do here, and what do we need to do here? And I think as well, everything that has happened with clients' hairs at home, whether they've left it to grow and their hairs after getting longer, like you can kind of I don't know, you can pivot. So you can pivot your plan now with our clients, like what we have to do with business. We have to pivot our businesses, but now and our education business, which is online. So, but now we get to pivot our plans with our clients, and clients who never probably would have had their hair long, or never would have maybe gone for, a balayage or the root shadows, now actually have natural ones, and they're loving it. So it's, I think there's a lot of goodness that has, a lot of good that's coming out of this as well. And I definitely think we are an industry that has, we've always been an industry that has, loved education, but I definitely feel like out of everything worldwide, hairdressing has come out as, the type of industry that really cares about learning and their education. And now I do think, there's a lot of colorists and hair salons that have gotten in touch with me, and now they finally know their worth, and now they're charging the prices they should be charging. And I think as an industry worldwide, we have upped our game, and we all know our value now, which is, I think it's special. Right now, I think our industry, it's always been special, but I think now other people know how special it is.
I agree 100%. It's up leveled everything so much that it's not, we're not being compared to incidental services that our clients happen to do, like the dry cleaner and the, things that they just do along the way, their personal trainer or whatever. Now it's like they missed us more than their doctor, their lawyer, their dentist, all the people that they pay the bigger bucks to. It was like, wow, I really do need my hairdresser. So I think, there's been more good than negative. And I think as an educator, what I have found to be missing, especially with hair color, is a quality consultation. And because we've been away from our clients for so long, we started doing virtual consultations because we needed to know how much time we needed when they came back in the salon. Well, we're going to continue to do that because we don't have to have an interruption in our day to have somebody sit and chit chat as a new client and take up a spot that we would be productive behind the chair. Now we're going to do them when we're not in the salon and be prepared for when they are. So a lot of I think technology and the hairdresser, for me as a virtual educator, the hardest thing for me when I first started was most hairdressers didn't know what Zoom was. They didn't know how to do any of this stuff. And now when I say to somebody who asks me a question, I'm like, oh, here's the Zoom link, jump on. They jump right on. The audio is good. And I'm like, that's amazing, that like grandmoms know how to Zoom their grandkids, and the connection is so much stronger. Even though we've been forced to be apart, we're so much closer from a technological standpoint. So I can't wait to come to Ireland. Globally. Now I know you and Justina. I know to visit. It's on my bucket list.
Oh, we will bring you on a tour around Ireland and to all the salons as well.
Well, I was going to say, I think we should do an event where we all collaborate and do an actual event, because someone actually wrote to me and said, do you ever come to Ireland to teach? And I was like, I'll come if you have people that will, show up. I'll fly there and show up for you. So I know, as you do, that, we love being behind the chair. We love our clients, but there's just something so special about being an educator and seeing those light bulbs go off with people understanding something that they may have missed along the way. So like, what is your favorite thing about being an educator versus being in the salon?
I think with education, you're helping to set, so the moments that I even remember of, those moments that when something drops and I'm like, oh my God, that's why, and it just clicks. And that feeling of empowerment that I feel in those moments, I'm able to educate somebody and give that to them. But also I'm still learning. I will never, like, I even like, I'm always learning. Like, so I will never stop. For reference for the podcast, I just held up a hair chemistry book. But like, it's just that you're helping to set somebody up, and it's the empowerment. So when you become an educator, you're helping to empower other people through knowledge and confidence. Because I think when you know how to do something or understand, it's the why. When you know the why of something, you just feel so empowered and you have confidence, and that helps in consultation as well, because it's that empowerment. I love it. And I love, a lot of people get in touch with me through social media, and I'm willing to help anybody. And And again, like that as well, a lot of people say to me, you know, Katrina, you do so much for free, but I get so much back. And even all the people that I do things for free, they all come on my courses. You know, they give so much back to me as well. They tell other people about me. And I just think we can all uplift the industry together as well. Like, there's incredible educators out there. I'm besotted with educators. I love them, and I love learning. There's always something that I will pick up from somebody, whether it might be, you know, I've had moments where I'm educating something and it might not be fully correct. I thought it was correct at the time, you know, because I learned it. And then I've went on, and somebody might have approached me and said, oh, did you know this about this? And I was like, oh. And then I had to go and discover that. And then, you know, I've had to chase my tail again and say, so, you know, that thing that I told you, well, I've actually learned this bit of information afterwards. And I love that, because what that does is, you know, anyone that I'm educating to, they know that I'm always looking for the latest information, and they know that I'm not afraid to admit if actually I've learned something in my own class, you know, that way as well. Because I don't think we all know absolutely everything. I think everything kind of evolves a little bit as well. And but I love that. I love that the human connections through education as well. I think it's pretty special. There's one of my children coming up the stairs. So sorry.
Where are you, Mom? You're not allowed to be.
The charger, it's over there alone. I'm just.
So my favorite thing that you said is knowing the why. That is like the crux of my entire education program. When someone reaches out with a question, they are yearning for me to give them a recipe. And I'm sure you get the same exact thing. Here's my client. This is what she wants. What should I do? And I say, let's walk through this together. You know, what do you think you need to do? Like, I try to get them to find the answer on their own, because what I found as beginning educator, I would just keep answering with the answer. And I started to do research on, you know, what it's like to be a qualified and quality teacher. And what I learned is there's 4 different types of learners. You know, we tend as educators to assume that people learn the way that we learn. So we teach to ourselves, to how we would want to be taught. And then when I learned about the 4 different types, I was like, oh, wow, this is more pressure. So when I created the online course, I had to speak to all 4 types of learners. So there's some people that need to see a demonstration, they're visual learners. And then there's some people that need to be told, their audio, they need to hear you say it, and then they can do it. And then there's people who have to absolutely do it or they can't repeat it. And there's people who love those head shapes and charts and visuals with like spreadsheets and you know, diagrams. That is not my forte. I am terrible with that. My drawings are horrible, and you'll never understand what I'm trying to teach with that. But the bottom line is, it all goes back to the why. The Simon Sinek book, you know, What is Your Why, was such a powerful book. It changed
Simon
everybody's. It like, you never really thought about that. You really didn't understand why. You know, you mix this with this and you set the timer, but do you really know why you did it? Like you explained with your Vivid and conditioner, I'm mixing the direct dye and the conditioner because the molecules are larger. It's not going to stain that blonde hair. I'm not going to be stuck with it like a manic panic or splat or something that I know that client's going to be stuck peach for another 2 years until it grows out. So you not only understand your why, you're taking the time to educate your client as to the why. And I can guess, I don't know you well enough, but I'm guessing you're fully booked, because most people don't feel the need to explain anything to their client. And then you have those other stylists who give too much information. They'll write to me and they'll say, my client won't let me use bleach. I'm like, wait, I'm sorry. Why are you asking your client what you're allowed to use on her hair? When did that start?
Do you know, it's funny, so I had like, I've had lots of clients in, like, but I remember like this particular week I had this particular client in, and I was trying to, because I would, on my social media, I would write out a lot of, just even down to the color wheel, to keep it really simple. And you know, yellow and violet, and you know, and maybe 2 parts violet and 1 part yellow, and kind of what that's going to, you know, more or less equal on like the color palette in a way. And I write it with a green marker, and I've been doing that for a couple of years, and it's just something that I would have put on social media and stuff. But one of my clients, it was a new client at the time, and she came in and she's like, oh, can you just write everything out the way? Because if I was educating in salons, I would take this green marker and I would write over every salon that I was teaching. I'd write all over the mirrors, and it kind of looked a little bit like, it was just a bit crazy, but it was because it was just numbers and everything else, or colors that I was writing. But again, it's just for those visual learners who are also there. But also, no, actually not even just for the visual learners, for the ones who, you know, need the numbers or need the colors wrote down. And but she had seen this and she had followed my journey, and she was like, can you just write on the mirror, like, you know, what you're explaining? So I remember getting my green marker and writing, like, drawing a green apple, because I was like, she's not going to understand everything, you know, from, like, you know, the hair sciencey side. And so I was like, right, I need to try and make sure that I'm keeping it, you know, that it's client safe education as well. So I drew an apple, and I was explaining about, you know, the apple, and the skin is like basically your cuticles, and a way it can kind of protect, and the inside of the apple is kind of like the cortex, and then the pip is like the medulla, and, you know, and then I was like, now, if you have over 200 medullas, and you eat them, that's poison. So don't do that. It's like, can you draw poison? I was like, no. So I was drawing this apple and going through everything. I was like, I've given you a recipe if anything ever goes wrong in a relationship. But I drew and explain in that way. But she just loved the whole, it was nearly theatrical for her, and she loved the understanding of it. And then she understood, like, how, you know, why it's important to protect the cuticles, and why we like to seal cuticles after, you know, a chemical process. And she just understood everything. So when I spoke to her then about going for, and we were doing a K-PAC for step hair repair treatment before her chemical service, everything that I explained to her. And beforehand, I had done like an online consultation, and she had bought products, so she was kind of prepping her hair beforehand. So she was so invested in me because I drew this apple on the mirror, you know, and I just explained it. But like that as well, it's explaining it in a way that that particular person is going to be able to absorb it. Because sometimes, and I've learned that even with my team, you know, I've 14 team members who work for me, and they all have a different, I call it, have you ever read that book? It's called the Love Languages.
Oh yeah. Mine is
yeah.
gift giving, my love language.
Oh, I love it. I love gift giving too. My husband is the total opposite, and I would have bought him gifts, and he's like, yeah. And I'd buy him, like, you know, a designer shirt. I'm like, no, you're gonna love it. And he'd be just like, oh, thanks. And I'm like, what? Expecting like him to be like, but and then expecting him to return the favor too. But
not happening.
No. But what I've learned even from that book is, like I call it now, it's education language. So what's everyone's, you know, love language, but education language. And even with team as well, sometimes their education language is praise. So when they get something and I praise them, they're going to keep repeating it, and they get better at that particular thing because I've praised them when they got it right. And then I have others who, you know, they literally will see something once and they have it, but they haven't a clue about the hair science. They don't even want to know about the hair science until they need to know when something goes wrong, and then they're ringing me. And then I say to them, now do you understand that it's really important that you know the why? Because you need me now, but you didn't, you know, until now. And again, it's just trying to explain that as well, that it's brilliant to be, you know, be a great finisher. It's brilliant to be able to do a brilliant technique, but it's genius to understand why you're doing what you're doing. And sometimes we just keep repeating things because it's working until the day it stops working, because maybe, you know, absolutely, environments change. And that is even why I think hair, you know, hair color, hair changes. I think humans change, like we evolve, so everything else has to evolve with it as well. So that's why I think education has to evolve along with as well. And that's why, like, I'm actually as excited today about learning as I was 26 years ago. So I love learning, and I love learning off everybody. I'll pick up something along the way off everybody. I just have to be very careful that because there was certain things that I learned years ago and I didn't question it at the time, and I took it as, you know, that's correct, until it wasn't, and I found out the hard way. So now I question everything, and I question myself. So if I've actually had a consultation with a client, and I've come up with the formula, and I'm in, I've done the plan, I always question myself. So I write down what I'm going to use, and then I say, Katrina, why are you using? And I've often said it out loud. My team come in and say, you're talking
I
to yourself
love
again. I'm like,
that.
yeah. But it's just because I am really busy. I have 2 children. I'm an entrepreneur. I've businesses, I've education, but I love my job behind the chair as well. I love, and I hate even calling it a job, but I love doing hair, and it doesn't matter where I'm doing it. I love, but I have to have that accountability with myself to say, why are you doing that? So I love, that's a little tip I always say to a colorist, like, ask yourself why. Do you ever ask yourself why? And most of the time we don't. But if you're on your own or somebody else is busy, just say, why am I doing that? And if you write it down, so for me, like, journaling has become a huge part of my life. So I journal now my formulas. So I just write them down. I scribble them out sometimes. Like, it's literally, we have on where we call it a color lab. So where our color lab is, it's just this chrome board, and we pull it out, and you can literally it's just a whiteboard marker. We just write down on it. And again, if one of my team is asking for help, we consult with each other as well. So we all help each other with consultations. But again, having that visual of writing it down and not being afraid to question each other as well, because sometimes that's really important as well. And then I would also say, don't ask too many people, because then you get lost in the information as well. Yeah, and the confusion of it, because we all are different. So what we might do with our client, and that's what our clients are attracted to us for a reason, and generally they're attracted through social media, because we all have our own personal brands even now on social media. And I want my team to have their own personal brand, even though they're working for us at Cut Social. I want them to have their own personal brand, because then they're going to attract the right clients and the right target market for them within our business. So I love that, because it just and it helps us all grow then as well, and then we're not concerned about any of us stealing each other's clients. We're kind of like, no, that's definitely your kind of client and this is definitely my kind of client, and the communication is always better as well. So
I think the time that people do the most not understanding their why is when they're glazing. When I see on different Facebook forums the recipes that people will do, especially I know you're with Joico, but I'll see like on the Redken users group, it's like, I use 9T, 9V, 9NA, 9WG. Like they'll do like 6 different colors. And I'm like, oh, honey. Like you just wasted, 3 ounces of color and you just created an N basically. Like you did this big potion. Everything
you've mixed all your primers in. And it's funny, because a lot of people then will say, I love to cocktail formulas, and and like I would have loved to do that years ago before I really understood. Like I'd be like, right. Oh, I'll have a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and then you do, and it browns out, and you're like, and it's only when you understand why, and you want to learn that. And that's going back to what I was saying about, you have to learn why. You have to. It's part of your job to learn why. I don't think technique alone is enough. You need to be going on, hair science courses, and everything, like every kind of course that you can go on that has been recommended, because I do think recommendations are really good as well when it comes to educators, because you have to have a vibe with an educator. You have to feel that you can ask them a question. Like there's lots of incredible educators out there, but there is a couple that I would never go on their courses, because I would feel that I couldn't, ask a question, do you know that way? Like, or and I do think that's really important as well. Find the educators that that you can ask those questions to, but also that know their stuff as well.
Yeah, I agree that what's happening now in the industry is a lot of technique driven individual classes, lots of hair painting, lots of technique. But most of the people that I've gone to technique classes with don't know their why for the color that they chose. And then when someone asks the question in the group, why did you choose that formula? They kind of get that deer in the headlights look, like they can't really answer it because it just happened to work on 2 clients ago. And it's just like let me throw it all in a bowl and pray. So I love what you said about that whiteboard in the dispensary, because to be able to really say, like this color has blue violet, and that's blue plus red. and it's being put on yellow hair. So blue plus red plus yellow. You know, the one blue and red is violet is going to cancel the yellow, and then you're left with more blue. So when you break it down like that, I mean, not that we all want to spend all day with every client doing all these little things, but I think if you do it a few times, and you realize that you're the reason why that result came out muddy because you got all fancy with your 14 different shades in the bowl, that it's so visual that you're like, oh, okay.
Like even if you were to do that, like, you know, your very first client every day, and you were to write out and like that as well. I don't write it out in numbers. I write out in blue, red, yellow. Like, so I write out and violet. Like, so I write out, like, you know, all in color. So it's like a color code in a way that I'm looking at visually. For me, it just helps me. And it's funny because, you know, I would have heard educators talk and use, you know, big words, and I'd get kind of confused. But now, like, you know, I realize that those words made them sound great and that's not always the best educator, like, or for me, that just didn't work for me. So for me, it was about breaking it down and simplifying it. So I could really understand what was happening. But even if you do it, like if it was your first client every day that you wrote down, you know, in color code, what it is that you're going to do, that sets you up for the day because your brain is starting to think like that then for the day. And you don't have to do it for every client, but even if it was, that was maybe even your morning routine for your color clients coming in. And it does, it really, it gets your brain working. And like the color wheel is the color wheel. So if we really understand the color, and same with the pH scale, like it's a scale, and when you understand those two things, like the pH scale took me, and I still learn so much. You know, I was doing we did like a hair science course, and one of the reasons I wanted to do it was because I wanted to learn more about it myself as well. And I was like, you know, trying to find the pH of like alcohol and gin and everything. Like my husband was like, what are you doing? I remember sitting in the kitchen, and then I was like, you know, taking bits of everything out, like, and I was just trying to find where everything was and what it all meant. And but again, it was more to explain, like, and in Ireland we have minerals in our water. I'm sure it's the same over there as well. So, and like there's iron sulfate as well, can be found in some well water, and there's a lot, like even in apartment blocks in Ireland. So that was a huge question that I kept getting asked on courses, and I was like, you know, I'm going to see what I can do. So I bought these chemistry sets, and I made ammonia and I made iron sulfate. And obviously ammonia, you know, can be found in a lot of hair color or something similar as well. So, and it was just to try and explain, you know, minerals and what happens, but also in a visual kind of way, but also that so everybody, we had our white coats on, we had our glasses. And again, it was theatrical. It was also, that was brilliant. I just loved to do it. It was just brilliant. We traveled actually around Ireland, myself and my friend Connor James Education. So but we traveled around Ireland, and it was just such a good course. Oh, has that muted? Oh no, sorry.
You're good. You're good.
I thought it went there. It was just such a great course to teach because we learned so much from it as well. But what we did was we got everybody, they were in like groups of 3. So to make the ammonia, like there was 2 people had to hold the tubes, and you were lighting stuff, and then we made the iron sulfate. And when the ammonia and the iron sulfate hit together, it went like this murky green color. And then we poured it out onto this little white kind of just like a terry cloth. And after about like 10 minutes, it oxidized. And when it oxidized, went this rusty orange brown color, which is something that we would see, you know, in hair. And again, it just gave it that visual to look at. But for me, even doing that, it made me, you know, even understand myself what's going on. And I'm not a chemist, but I just loved even trying to do that. And I learned so much, and it made me kind of like, I guess, up my game with my knowledge and wanting to learn more. And but again, not being afraid to maybe go out and try things to learn as well, because I definitely think we can all push, you know, we can push past some of the major brands to be, you know, to be even more, and maybe, like, I don't know, lead our industry into even more greatness, and exploring things as well. I love exploring stuff, but then also I have to be careful because sometimes I'm like, oh, I want to try this, and I get so excited about it, you know. So but and then also at the same time I was like, oh my God, I've just taught everybody how to make ammonia.
But I
So
love your passion. Like you said early on in the conversation that you're 26 years in the industry. I'm 35 years in the industry, and we could talk
yeah,
like two little hair color nerds probably for 4 hours
yeah,
straight and never run out of something fun to
yeah,
talk about. So that's
yeah,
the key, and that's why you're a great educator, is because you bring that fun, curious little girl side to what you're doing.
yeah,
And when you lose
yeah,
her, when you lose that passion and the excitement, every day becomes the same, and you're behind the chair going through
yeah,
the motions. And that's the key to longevity in our industry. And I love that you bring that to your salon as a leader, as someone behind the chair, and also as an educator. So I know people listening, they're either on their treadmill, or they're walking in a park, or they're in their car, and they probably don't have anything to write with, but we will add into the show notes. Where can people find you and your education? They're going to want more of you after they listen to this. I know I do.
Thanks so much. Thank you. Well, we're going to have to collaborate and do something together as well.
Absolutely.
So I'm on Instagram as Katrina Kelly Education, and also known as KK, but it's Katrina Kelly Education would be Instagram handle. I'm on Clubhouse, so I run a Clubhouse called Salon Biz Growth Mindset, and we talk mainly about you know, different ways of growing your salon business, but again with a growth mindset. So everything is all about solutions to problems, as opposed to, like, I'd have like life coaches on it as well, because even in the salon we do, for the team, we do CBT training, we do life coach training, you know, anxiety, like everything. It's like, to me, everything is in the mind, and it
100%.
really sets it. Yeah, it sets the team up, like, and we do meditation, anything my team need. I'm like, right, let's get on this, because like one thing doesn't fit all. Like meditation might not work for somebody, but you know, maybe looking within themselves, and exactly going back to what you said, finding that inner child who is allowed to come out every now and again can be really, really good. So but yeah, so salon based growth mindset, and that's the name of the club on Clubhouse. But again, I'm under Katrina KK Education, it is on Instagram. And I'm on Facebook, but I don't use it that much. Our salon page is called Cut Social. But that's mainly where I'm on TikTok as well, but I'm only new to TikTok. But that is
I
Katrina Kelly
haven't gone there
Education.
yet. My kids are like, please don't. They already hate that I do as much social media as I do. It's embarrassing for them, but you are amazing. Thank you so much for doing
So are
this.
you.
We definitely need to get together and do something
Absolutely.
fun in the future.
Yeah.
Thank you everybody for listening, and thank you for being here. And we're going to add all that information you just gave will be in the show notes for people to get in touch with you. So everybody, thanks for listening, and we will see you on the next one.
Thank you. Bye.